Welcome to this tutorial. In this tutorial, I'll be learning how to make this gown, and for this one I'll be teaching the pattern drafting. Okay, so we'll start with the upper bodice, and as you can see, I have my white paper. So I drafted ½ inch. I marked out ½ inch, and from that ½ inch I'm going ahead to mark my armhole length, and then I'm also going ahead to mark the bust point. So the bust point is 10 inches and the half cut is 13 inches, while the waist length is 16 inches. Now the armhole, I divided the bust, which is 38 inches. The bust is 38 inches, so I divided 38 inches by 6 and added 1.5, and that gave me about 7.8 inches, which is what I marked as the armhole length. So I'm also going to mark the same lines I marked on across the paper to enable me get a straight line. And by the way, these lines are our normal basic bodice lines. Okay, these are the vertical measurements we usually take before the horizontal measurements. Like I said, there's the shoulder line, there's the armhole line, there's the bust point line, there's the under bust or half cut line, and then there's the waist line. So the next thing I'll be doing is to label the lines. So I have the chest line first, then I have the bust point, and then I have the under bust length, and I have the waist or navel length as represented. So the next thing I'll be doing is to create another line, and for this line I'll be going up from my chest line by 3.5 inches. You can also decide to go up by 3 inches if you feel 3.5 inches is too high for you, but for this 3.5 inches is going to ensure that we have every cleavage properly covered. Okay, so that's what I did. From my chest line I went up by 3.5 inches. Like I said, you can also decide to go by 3 inches if it's okay for you, or you can even decide to go by more than 3.5 inches. Then the next thing is to divide your nipple to nipple by 2, which the nipple to nipple for this measurement is 9 inches, divided by 2 is 4.5 inches. So I marked that 4.5 inch across the paper. By the way, what we are trying to do is to draft a straight cut bustier. This is not a princess dart bustier. This is a straight cut bustier, and that is what we are trying to do. So I'm going ahead to mark that line across the paper, as you can see me do. Then the next thing I'm going to do is to go 1 inch on both sides. As you can see me do, I went 1 inch on both sides, and the same thing on top. At the top of the marking I went 3/4 on one side, and the other side I went 1.2 inches, and then I came down. Go ahead and connect the lines. Okay, now go from this point, create your bustier to the bust point, or use your curve ruler to connect it to the bust point, as you can see me do in the video. Now come back to the top and connect as well. Like I said, go in at the top. Where I connected, I went in 0.7 inch, and then the other side where I'm marking now, I went in by 1.2 inch, because the measurement at the top is usually not the same. The side part has to go in more than the center part for the top. The next thing now is to mark the measurement. The bust is 38 inches, divided by 4 is 9.5 inch. Then measure the allowance for the dart intake and then add 2 inches allowance. Come down as well. The under bust is 33.5, but the waist is 34.5, so I just use 34, okay, so that the waist will just have half inch of snatch. That's 8.5 when it's divided by 4. Then measure the dart intake, replace it, and then add 2 inches allowance. You are adding 2 inches allowance because of the joining of the bustier, okay. So do not forget, you take your actual measurement, then replace the dart intake, and then add 2 inches allowance, and this is what we have. We are done marking our bustier, and it's very simple. Very simple. We are done creating our bustier. So the next thing I will do at this point is to curve the base of the bustier, but before that I'm going ahead to mark the armhole. Okay, remember that we've not created the armhole for this, so what I'm going ahead to do is I'll be curving the armhole to connect with the first marking, the first bust marking I did, not the allowance or not the dart intake, but the first bust marking. You can see what we have there. Yes, so that is how to get your armhole. The line is a chest line, so just connect from your chest line to the top and we are good to go. The next thing we are going to do after this is to curve our pattern. So I came up by 1.5 inch, and then from this point I'll curve it to the point you can see me curve in the video. So this is to ensure that we have that nice curve at the edge of the dress when we are done. And this is everything about the bustier. If there are any questions, please ask me. And at this point, I'm going ahead to cut out the pattern. So watch carefully as I cut and do the same. So we are done cutting, and you can see I'm going ahead to label the pattern, center piece and side piece. This is everything for the center piece. The next thing I want to do is to cut out the back piece, okay, and this is very simple. This method I'll be using is a very simple method. So what I want to do right now is to show you the back of the picture and explain something. Now you can look at this picture, you see that the back is deeper than the front. If you see the front of the style, the back is deeper. So what I'm going to do right now is I'm folding the center piece of my pattern by 2 inches. That means you can see the way I folded it, I'm reducing like 2 inches from the height of my front center piece, and then I'm going to place it on the pattern. This will make my back look deeper. So I've gone ahead to do that, and I place it on this piece of paper, leaving out the zipper allowance. So when you are doing this, ensure that you leave space for your zipper allowance. Now I'm going to be taking my zipper allowance. I'll be using 1.5 inches for my zipper allowance, which is what I will mark shortly. So I've gone ahead to mark that. Then at the base of the pattern, I minus ½ inch, that is making 1 inch, and then I connected. We are doing this because of zipper bulge, so that at the end of the day we will not have any zipper bulge at the back. So I'm going ahead to retrace this pattern. Now remember that the back piece does not have a bust shape, and this front piece has a bust shape. What I'm doing now is the ½ inch I took from the zipper allowance, I replaced it, and then I just marked the top, and then I'll be using my ruler to connect. If you don't understand, just take it back and watch what I did. I replaced the ½ inch I took at the zipper allowance, I replaced it down at the other side, and then I just went ahead to connect to the starting point at the top, and our back center piece is ready. This is very, very simple. Use this method to cut your back center piece, and you have a very nice job at the end of the day, or you obtain a very good result. Do not forget to label these pieces, okay, especially for the back piece, because all the sides look the same. So I'm going ahead to label up and down, the zipper up and the zipper down, so that when I am recutting on my fabric, I know that this is the side for the zipper allowance. I also went ahead to place the side piece on another paper, and I'll be cutting the exact shape, okay. I'll be recutting the exact shape, except for the bust, because the back does not have the bust. Now just carefully watch at what I'm going to do. Now you can see I'm using my marker to trace the line before I have the bust. So I just marked it, I took it out, then I took my back center piece, look at what I did, and I placed on that line, and then I connected it to the armhole line. Can you see how simple this is? This is very simple. So after doing that connection, I'll just go ahead and retrace the line as you see me doing the video, and we are done. So as you can see, we are done with all the pieces. Look at what our back piece looks like. Go ahead and label like I earlier said, and then you are ready with your upper part. So you can see what we have. That's the back piece. You can see how well aligned it's looking. That's the front side piece connecting as well, also aligning well, and then we have our center piece as well. Okay, so this is the pattern for the top. Please ask me any questions if you do have. The next thing we are going to be working on is the skirt part. So I folded my pattern into two, and then I'll be marking for the skirt part. Now remember that the waist length for our pattern, or the waist length of our measurement is 16 inches. So what I'll be doing now is to go ahead and still mark another ½ inch on my paper. This ½ inch is usually necessary for your joining, because of course you are going to be joining the skirt part to the top part. Then look at where my tape started from, that 16 inches. Okay, I'll place my tape on 16 inch. I mark my hip length, then I'll mark my knee length. Okay, I use 34 inches for the knee length, but you have to measure your client. measure her to the top of her knee and subtract 2 or 3 inches. But for this one I used 34 inches, and then of course the gown length. So I'm going ahead to mark the lines. This is the hip length, that is the knee length, and then you can mark your gown length. But because this pattern paper is not long, I marked it as a short gown. When I'm cutting on the fabric, I'll show you how I went about it. Okay, but if your pattern paper is long, please mark your full gown length. Okay, now I went ahead to place the same measurement I placed on the upper part, which is 34 inches, is the same thing I placed here. 34 divided by 4 is 8.5 plus 1.5 inch allowance. Take note that for the skirt the allowance is 1.5 inch. I have my hip 44 divided by 4 is 11 plus 1.5 inch allowance. Then I subtracted 1 from 11 and put there, which is 10 inches, and then 1.5 inch allowance. Okay, and then for the gown length you can decide to subtract 1 or half depending. Okay, whatever you have at the knee length you can subtract 1 or half depending on how fitted you want the skirt to be and place. And then the next thing I'm going ahead to do is to connect with my pattern ruler. Like I said, the pattern paper is short, so I'll be marking it as a short skirt, and I'll be altering it when I'm marking on the fabric. So I'm going ahead to shape the skirt. You can see what it looks like, and we are done. Go ahead and cut. Please do not forget to mark this skirt part as a gown by beginning your tape from where you stopped at the upper part. Now I'm going ahead to cut. We are done. Also, do not forget to label your skirt so that you do not sew on the wrong side. We are done. The next thing I want to do is to mark the back piece. Now I've placed my pattern leaving zipper allowance. I'm still going back to place my tape on 16 inch. I'm marking out the half inch, then I place on 16 inch. From there also I marked my hip length, which is 24 inches, and then of course the remaining length of the skirt. Then my zipper allowance is 1.5 inch, and then I added half inch and put on the hip, making 2 inches, and then I put the zipper allowance downwards, which is also 1.5 inch. That extra half inch at the hip is for butt allowance, so that our butt will sit in perfectly or nicely into the skirt. So that is why you add half inch behind your skirt for a better result. Then go ahead and connect, and then we are done with our zipper allowance side. Also, just in case you are wondering why we use 1.5 inch allowance for the skirt, remember we used 2 inch allowance for the upper part, and we are going to have joinings at the bustier at the upper part. That's the reason for the 2 inch allowance. But for the skirt, there will be no in between joinings, just by the sides, so 1.5 inch will work just fine. Okay, so go ahead and cut, and we are good to go. Please do not forget to mark your skirt, okay, so that you don't get confused when you are drafting. I'm marking that side so that I'll know that that is a point for the zipper allowance. So we are done. Now the next thing I'll be doing is to fold another piece of paper. This is to recreate the front piece. Of course, you know that we have to manipulate the front piece to get the slit, the asymmetric slit. So we need to have 2 pieces for the front piece. Okay, so go ahead and fold your pattern paper and cut the exact front piece you cut before, so that we can work on it. We are done with the cutting of the front piece again, and we are looking at the style. Now look at this style. You can see the way the slit is. First of all, where the arrow is pointing, you can see that overlapped part is slanted downwards. Okay, so we are also going to be slanting it on our pattern. You can also see the slit as well. Now can you also see that for the left side, the wrap entered into the allowance, but for the right side that has the button, the wrap did not enter into the allowance. You can see it stopping before the allowance. Okay, so we're also going to be marking this on the pattern. Okay, so just take note of how it looks so that you understand when we are marking on the pattern. Okay, so I'm going to open up my pattern paper. Like I said, we are going to shorten the right side so that it doesn't enter into the allowance. So our allowance, remember, is 1.5 inch. I'm going ahead to remove out that 1.5 inch on the right side. The reason is what I showed you on the skirt. The right side did not enter into the allowance, so we are going to bring that out, and that is what I did. I'm marking out that 1.5 inch. I'll go ahead and connect, and then I will cut it out just on the right side. Remember, the left side entered into the allowance, but the right side did not, so I'm marking it out so that I'll cut it out. So I'll cut it out, and the next thing I'll be doing is from the right side I'll come down by 3.5 inches and I'll mark. Then I'll connect this to the left hand as you see me do in the video, so we can get the same slant we have at the top of the style. So you can see this, and take note that the slant did not enter the allowance of the left side. Can you see? Yes, I stopped before the allowance. Okay, so go ahead and do this, and then mark the middle of your paper. You can see what I've marked at the middle, that's the center of the paper, and then I'll go ahead and connect it as you see me do in the video, and that is it for the overlapped part. You can see. So we are done. I'll go ahead and cut, and then I will also show you how we are going to come about the side for the other part of the slit. So we have done that. The next thing is I carry the second piece, I opened it up, and then I placed the first piece on top to align it. Now can you see what we have? Now what we have to do now is to get the second slit, and what we are going to do is we are going to divide what is left at the other side by 2. Remember that the first slit is on the middle point, so I'm going to use my tape and divide what is left by 2. Before that, I marked, what I'm doing is to mark my knee length, okay, because the slit, if you look at the slit very well, it started above the knee, so you can decide to go up by 2 inches above the knee to get the exact position of the slit. But if you are okay with your slit at your knee length, why not go ahead and leave it so. Okay, so then at this point I went ahead to divide. You can see as I'm dividing what is left by 2. Do the same thing so that we can get the second slit. Mark it, and then you connect it from this point to where to the top of the slit, as you can see me do with my ruler. And that is all. We are done. So can you see this? this will give us the same shape with what we have in the video. Now you can't leave the inner skirt like that, even though it's going to disturb when your client is working. So you can just slant it to cut out, or I slanted it but I felt it was too high, so I just went ahead and brought it low a bit. I just made the slant to end after the hip so that it can be more comfortable. But you can cut out the parts that you feel is okay for you to cut out, is still fine. And then that is it. Just go ahead and cut it out and we are ready. Please do not forget to mark the point where the slit begins. That is the top of the slit. It is very important you mark it so that when you are cutting your fabric, you also mark it as well so that they will meet. It is very important. Mark it. I marked it while making the video so that when you're sewing the skirt on the fabric, those points are going to meet. Yes, so I just marked it as you can see me do, and we are done. So this is it for the drafting of the skirt part and the upper part of the style. So I'll also be posting the part 2 where we'll make the skirt. We'll be cutting this pattern on the fabric and then we'll be making the skirt part. I hope you understood this video. Thank you for watching.